You know, if it's owned by a for-profit company, then they do pay property taxes.
Okay.
So if community is leasing space from, you, then the landlord has to pay.
So then they pass that charge on. Oh, well, that's good to know.
Yeah, so there are a few properties that are medical that pay tax, but I mean, the major, hospital is not going to.
Well, it's almost like a joke in town, when something's being built, everyone, oh, what is it? What is it? No, another medical building. It's like, no, we don't need another one.
Yeah.
And then with Harley just closing, somebody said, oh, what are they doing? Because they resealed the parking lot. And they're like, oh, I heard whatever community's taking it over.
Well, Community Hospital does own most of that property.
Oh, do they really? Where the Harley building is?
Well, not the lot that Harley was sitting on, but all that, what it looks like a farm field.
Yeah,
Most
next
of that
to
is
it.
owned by it's not owned specifically by the hospital, it's owned by the Community Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization that owns the hospital. So,
Wow.
a lot of that is community in one way or another.
Well, rumor has it the Harley owners are doing something with it.
Oh, really? I haven't heard anything. As in Harley Davidson corporate? Is that what you're?
No, like the actual building owners.
Oh, the building owners.
Yeah, the building owners, they've owned it, I think it's at 27 years. And so when they were cracking jokes about it being another medical, that it's not going to be another medical building, that the current owners are doing something very unique with it. I don't know.
Interesting.
Can't believe everything you read on, but.
Right.
Really nice, something different for people's entertainment. Obviously, COVID effect.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Buxton.
make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second that, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Freeman, Tom, would you please call roll?
Sharon Mayer,
yes,
Stuart Friedman,
Yes.
Daniel Buxton,
Yes.
Jonathan Peterson,
Yes.
Chairman Raffin.
Yes. The first item on the agenda in preliminary hearings is BZA 20-012 Superior Avenue 475 B Core Chicago corridor represented by Kimberly Horn requesting approval of developmental standard variances from table 26-6405A7 of the Munster zoning ordinance to expand a driveway beyond the minimum permitted width, to permit off-street parking in the first lot layer, to permit off-street loading in the first lot layer, and to waive the required screening for loading areas from table 26-40503 to waive the minimal dimensions for a parking area. This is a preliminary hearing. Tom, would you like to give us some background regarding this preliminary hearing?
I will. Can everybody see my screen here? I've tried to share the staff report.
I can.
Yes.
Okay, then I will just kind of go through this for everyone's benefit. We received an application here, or petition, from Kimberly Horn, which is an engineering firm, on behalf of B Core Corridor Chicago LLC, which is the owner of the property at the subject address here, 475 Superior. This is the GE appliance distribution facility. It's highlighted here on the screen in blue. You'll notice that it's located kind of at the end of Superior Avenue, west of Calumet Avenue, east of the freight railroad tracks there. And they approached the town with a project that would expand their driveway from 41 feet in width to 60 feet in width, with a large wide apron at the front property line. And the intent of the project was, or is, to allow for an additional 4 inbound trucks to stack in the driveway in order to eliminate the frequent lining up of semis on in the westbound lane along Superior Avenue. As it states in the staff report, there are a number of variances that are going to be required in order to accomplish this project. Those are listed here. There would be a variance from the maximum width of a driveway. It's shown there that the maximum width is 24 feet. They're proposing 60 feet in width. There's a prohibition on off-street parking in what's called the first lot layer, which is equivalent to the front yard. And they're proposing to have parking in that first row, in that first lot layer. They're also proposing to extend the loading area to that first lot layer. And they're also not screening that loading area. So those are the next 2 variances. And then finally, in connection with this project, because they're widening the driveway, they are also modifying their employee parking lot, which I guess, for lack of a better term, is an employee parking lot, but it's also, I think, serves their customers. But it's not the truck parking lot. So they're eliminating a space on the east side and replacing one on the west side. The dimensions of the existing parking lot are what I would call substandard, meaning that they're not, the bays are not as long as they should be per our town code. So although they're, building substandard parking spaces, they are basically just replicating the existing spaces on the other side of the parking lot. This is a good, let me see if I can zoom out on this. This is kind of a good overview of the project that they're proposing. As you can see, this kind of, what do you call that, speckled area is where they propose to expand the driveway, to widen the driveway. This section here of pavement in their parking lot will be removed, and they'll replace those lost parking spaces here on the west side of the parking lot. This is the building here. In addition to the modifications to the driveway and to the parking lot, they're also proposing to bring the project up to code in terms of the screening of the loading area. So right now, if you can see the cursor, there's a chain link fence. This is the yard, and this is the front yard. So there's a chain link fence screening that loading area. They're going to replace that with a solid fence to provide a more, some visual screening. And then they're also installing landscaping and a wrought iron style fence along the front of the parking lot here to comply with our standards for parking lot screening. So as I said, there's multiple variances required for this project, but they've really been working with the town to come up with a solution to the sort of the congestion in their yard and the resulting lining up of trucks along Superior Avenue.
Tom, I have a question for you.
Sure.
I've driven this way a ton of times in the last 2, 3 months. There are trucks stacked all the way past Franciscan Hospital down Superior coming into this business park here. It's a total hindrance, not only traffic and safety with all these trucks lined up all the way down. Are we using the Town of Munster Police Department to issue citations? And what is a ticket? I mean, is it a $500 ticket for impeding traffic in that area? Or is it something we should look at for having the proper teeth in our ordinance to be able to write citations for 30 semis parked along the road by the hospital?
Roland, that's a good question. I don't know the amount of the fine associated with the ticket. I can tell you that our police department does monitor the situation and from time to time does go out there and write tickets to the drivers who are lined up on the road or ask them to find another place. I can tell you also that in the past, they did install no parking signs along that stretch of road. However, I've learned from talking to some of the truck drivers, they don't view what they're doing as parking as so much as waiting.
Oh, I should say no standing or stopping.
Yeah, which is already the law. I mean, it's already a state law that prohibits that from happening, but that being said, I think one of the challenges that the operators of this distribution facility have found is that they don't, and this is what they've communicated to me, is that they don't have a regular set of drivers that would remember that they got a ticket last time they came through. So they have, it's different drivers from day to day. So
But wouldn't it be on the business then to have some kind of employee out there directing them and keeping them off the street?
yeah, and I think they have attempted to do that. Unfortunately, not effectively.
Right.
And I think what they're trying to do with this project is to, sort of make it a little bit more intuitive for some of these trucks to follow the rules. A little easier for them to follow the rules as well.
Now, my follow-up, have you driven to this parcel lately? Because we gave the variance for that lot next door that they store empty semi-trailers, the tractor, just the semi-trailers, not the cab. There was about 50 semis in there parked yesterday, and that fence we put up, you might as well take it out. It's all knocked down from all the semis backing in and out of it.
Yeah, I have been back there, and in fact, when we met with Kimley Horn in a site plan review committee meeting, that was one of the issues that we identified is the overall kind of maintenance of that parking lot and the parking area actually to the north of there on the property, sort of between that parking lot and the retention area.
Is that where they put a gravel lot in there that's not a paved lot?
Yes, that's the lot.
That's all I have. It's just we have to come up with a solution to keep these trucks off the street, and we're going to have to look at tougher enforcement as well, in my opinion.
So Tom, I don't understand, based upon what Roland said, what they're asking for, this is not going to resolve the sitting of the trucks outside of the property, right?
What it's going to do, hopefully, is to not resolve the fact that there's trucks waiting to get into the yard, but it will give them a place to wait that is not on the public street. That's the intent. If you can see this aerial image, Stuart, you'll see this is their existing driveway. It's wide enough to permit 2 trucks to kind of stack as they're waiting to get in. And then the rest are waiting here along Superior Avenue on the westbound lane to turn in and enter the yard. There's a guard check right here, so they can't get beyond this fence without checking in. So what this will do is it'll allow an additional 4 semis to be in the driveway. So if there's a wait of 6 trucks, they can all be accommodated in the driveway rather than having them trail out onto Superior Avenue.
So, we're allowed to make a condition on the variance that we would grant the variance and allow them to do it if they resolve and they take responsibility for getting these trucks to be out off the street. Because I don't care, whether the truck drivers are temporary or they don't care about the enforcement of it, but I care about it, that if we're going to grant them a variance, then we expect them to play the rules correctly.
So this is Jonathan Goki. I'm with GE Appliances. I don't know if this is appropriate time for me to jump in and talk, but
I'm
Jonathan,
gonna, we'll open it up to you to speak in a second. We'll bring it back to the commission, but thank you. Tom?
I have nothing further to report. But I think all the points that you've made are accurate and good points. I will say to Stuart's question of whether or not you can impose conditions, I think the answer is yes, you can impose reasonable conditions on the granting of a variance.
Okay. Does any other commission member have a question for Tom before I open it up to the gentleman from GE? Is it Mr. How do you say your last name? Gecki?
it's Goki.
Goki, Mr. Goki?
Yes. Sorry for not knowing the protocol. I just wanted to make sure that I knew when it was appropriate to talk.
Well, the floor is yours.
Okay. So first of all, I want to apologize for not being there in person. It was my intent to come up there and be there in person for this meeting, but I'm currently on day 12 of a COVID diagnosis, and our company policy doesn't allow us to travel until at least 14 days after symptoms. So what we're trying to do is, just like the staff report said, is, today, because this is an older distribution center, typically when we build new distribution centers today, which we've done 4 of them in the last 2.5 years, we make a long winding driveway to get in there to allow us to have enough truck queuing so that we don't back out onto the streets. And so since this is an older distribution facility we've been into, we don't have the luxury of having the large driveway. And so we're well aware that it's been an issue backing up into Superior Avenue for years. And we've done a lot of operational attempts at getting this under control. We've had the truck drivers that come in here, they don't work for us. But we have communicated with our transportation teams that they needed to let these individual carriers know that they're not allowed to park on Superior Avenue, and they do not need to park there, especially with the hospital down the street and with our neighbors across the street. We don't want that either. We've installed security camera out there so that we could kind of get a better gauge of what's happening on Superior Avenue from inside the building. And so really, we started looking at this driveway expansion as a way to add some truck queuing onto the property. So, I think at worst case, I don't know exactly how many trucks we have on Superior Avenue at worst case. I think typically if we have, 5 on Superior Avenue, I think that's pretty bad. I mean, 1 is bad, but 5, I think it's as bad as I personally have seen it when I've visited up there. But so this would allow us to get, essentially 4 more trucks to queue as we get in there. In terms of, we met with the Munster PD last year to talk about this, and we encouraged them that hey, we've reached out to the carriers. We've told them not to park there. We fully understand if they want to write these carriers and these truck drivers tickets, it's well within their right. They shouldn't be parking there, and so we're supportive of that. In terms of a guarantee that this will get all trucks off of the road at all times, that would be a hard commitment for us to make, just because if we have a bunch of trucks show up at once and we can't get them through the gate quick enough, it would be hard for us to be able to commit to that. But we can commit that this will allow us essentially to have 6 trucks waiting to get into the DC as opposed to today being 2.
Well, Jonathan, I was there last night, and I got pictures on my phone. There were 9 trucks on Superior Avenue last night.
Okay, that's unfortunate. I will say that with
I actually went up to the security guard and mentioned to him, since he was out there standing there, that he should be getting those trucks off the street.
Yeah. So I will say that in today's current environment with the pandemic and the way volumes have been, this has been a pretty unusual time for us across all of our DCs across the country, and that our volumes have been incredibly high. So while it's never okay to have trucks on the street, I think that once I would say business gets back down to a more regular level, we wouldn't have that many trucks.
Now you have a lot of empty, or I assume they're empty trailers in the lot next door. Is there a way to limit the amount of trailers you have? I don't know how much you're loading trailers up daily. Do you have like your own piggyback trucks so you move those trailers around, create more storage so you can stack more active live loading trucks?
I don't have the operational background on the day-to-day of what they're doing. I know in that lot, we have several carriers that service the lot, and that's where we store a lot of the empties there. We have a spotting service that will pull trucks to and from it. I don't know about that we could create any more storage. I think we're pretty tapped out on our trailer storage at this point.
Does anyone from the board have a question for the petitioner?
Roland, I'll also just mention that there are a number of other representatives here in the room, including someone from Kimley Horn and some folks from DART who actually operate the facility.
Would either of them like to speak tonight? This is a preliminary hearing. I know we got quite a bit of background already on it. I'm going to open up to a public hearing next month, but they're more than happy to hear anything they have to say if they like to step up their microphone. Tom?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just state your name and address for the record if you're going to come up to speak.
Absolutely. My name is Nate Groff with Kimley Horn, 2521 Jackson Drive in Woodridge, Illinois. So I'm the civil engineer on the project. We also did the landscape design for this. The one item I wanted to mention that just hasn't been mentioned yet is that we work with staff on making sure that trucks that are coming into the staging area would be able to do so and make that right turn into the facility without any conflicting movement with the eastbound traffic on Superior. So just to point out, that's why we're showing that large radius if you're able to bring up the site plan.
Your 60-foot radius?
Yeah, exactly, which is a pretty big radius, but necessary to be able to do that movement that we modeled to keep the inbound truck in the appropriate westbound lane as they come in to make that maneuver. So that I just wanted to point that out, and obviously here for any questions on the civil or landscape specifics.
Well, I guess that would all determine on how the trucks are stacked there and how they can make a turn in that, right?
Correct. We wanted to look at it in a way that six trucks could park there and stage there while not interfering with any other traffic on Superior, but also allowing for a route for a truck to exit the facility onto Superior. So we modeled it that way to make sure we could accommodate it that way.
Are you going to stripe it so a truck driver knows where to wait if he pulls in that area?
That's the intent. We're showing dashed lines on this plan that represents the striping of those 15-foot lanes.
Roland?
Yes, Ms. Mayor.
I have a question. So the the truck that's going to be parked opposite the garage, the guard shed, how is that truck supposed to maneuver? I'm not following that at all.
Well, we do expect there'll be some jockeying back and forth in a scenario where all 6 of the staging spots are being utilized. The intent there is that there would be communication with the guard staff as to that's the last truck that would need to enter the facility, so it would be there. And then once there's room on the other side, as the other trucks have gone into the facility, it would be able to maneuver into that right lane to then enter. So it's really just a parking location, staging location, knowing that there's some maneuvering that needs to happen for it to come into the facility.
And that, so is that guard shed, is that manned 24 hours a day?
Yes,
And are there trucks going in and out all 24 hours a day?
I believe so. I don't know, Jonathan, you want to speak to the busier times, but it's a 24/7 facility is my understanding.
Yeah, it's 24, it's 24, we'll call it 5 or 6. But yeah, we have peak periods of trucks that come in and out of there, but yeah, it's 24, 5 or 6.
Well, I'm gonna have to really urge this development to keep these trucks off the street because, like I said, I've driven through there so many times over the last month and a half, 2 months, and it has been horrible for the rest of the people in this business development. I've heard numerous complaints from different business owners, the laborers hall, and multiple other people around there that they just can't get in and out of their businesses or in and out of development due to the stacking of these trucks. And I think we're going to have to up our enforcement and fines to ensure that this doesn't happen.
Are they stacking up at night too, or is it only during the day shift that they stack up?
Well, I've only been through there during the day shift, so I don't drive past her at 7, 8 o'clock at night. I'm talking from when I'm through there, maybe from noon to 5 o'clock at night.
Right. No, I'm just curious about their business and, if they had more unloading going on, after normal business hours, maybe it wouldn't be such an issue for the other businesses in the area.
Hey, Roland, we've got a gentleman by the name of Mike with his hand up.
Yes, I know this isn't a public hearing, but we will take any feedback if someone would like to speak. Next month, we will have a public hearing for the public, but if Mike would like to speak, he can go ahead and give us just a minute or so of his opinion or views on this development.
Sure. Thank you very much. My name is Mike Purcell. I am the owner of 530 Superior Avenue, Purcell Commercial Cleaning and Supply. And while I can appreciate people and business, and I'm glad the trucks are coming in there and business is going well, it's really a hindrance on my business and lithographic and laborers, like was mentioned. And I think the issue is, Tom, I've spoken to you, I've spoken to Chief Shekel, I've spoken to Dustin, I've spoken to former Councilman Reed, I've spoken to Mr. Baker. And the issue is, from my point of view, it's a twofold issue. I really think GE needs to do a better job of policing the trucks out on the street. Yesterday, they were literally backed up from their entrance all the way to Calumet Avenue. And to answer the other question, it is mainly during the day. The issue is nobody comes out until I call the police. I was instructed to call 911 non-emergency on this, so then there's a record of how many times this is happening. And sometimes people come out, sometimes they don't. In GE's defense, these truckers are incredibly disrespectful to the people who do come out, to the Munster police, which I'm sure you could check. They get F-bombed, they get disrespected. The thing I have a problem with, and I agree with Mr. Raffin, is we should ticket these guys, whether they're one-timers or 17-timers, because everybody knows you get hit in the pocketbook, that hurts. And I spoke to the police officer the other day who came out, and he told me that the guy F-bombed him and said, write him a ticket. He doesn't care. So I do think that GE has to do a better job of policing. It shouldn't be when I'm calling the 911 non-emergency. And for the public hearing, I'm happy to attend that one in person as well. I was not notified of this tonight. I got wind of it, so I was happy to hop on Zoom. I will be there for the next public one, but I was hoping that maybe the town manager could be there and the chief could be there to lend his information as well. Because it's an extremely difficult and frustrating thing to operate a business with.
Thank you, Mr. Purcell. You'll get notified of the public hearing when we set it for a public hearing tonight. We'll have all the notices sent to you that you'll know when the meeting is. Tom, I got a question for you. A friend of mine in Munster got a ticket for parking in the Centennial Park after dusk when he was walking with his wife. It was a $500 ticket. I hope we're charging the same kind of fines for parking on the street blocking businesses as we are to a family that parks after dusk at a park. And I'd like to know what the fines are regarding parking on the street in this area for next meeting.
Yeah, Roland, this is Dave Whitman, if you have just a minute. The traffic and the parking business for the town is handled by Dave Westland.
Okay.
So I will follow up with Dave, find out about the fines or what we can do before the next public hearing.
That'd be great, Mr. Wickland. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone have any other questions? If not, I'll look for a motion regarding. Hello?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Dan
Mr.
Fox
Buxton.
here.
I make a motion to set BZA docket number 20-012 for public hearing, that the petitioner cooperate with the town and name all required advertising notices.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second it, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second. Tom, would you please call roll?
Sharon Mayer,
Yes.
Stuart Freeman,
Yes.
Daniel Buxton,
Yes.
Jonathan Peterson,
Yes.
Chairman Rappin.
Yes. With this being set for public hearing, please work with our staff regarding meeting all meeting requirements regarding the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is BZA 20-013 Kennedy Court 9300 Regional Boat and RV Storage. Kevin Kish requesting a developmental standard variance from table 26-6 405A9 to permit the installation of a barbed wire fence around a boat and RV storage yard at 9300 Kennedy Court. Tom, I'll turn the floor over to you for a little synopsis.
Okay, this is actually a very simple request here. Kevin Kish is the owner of this property highlighted in blue. It's 9300 Kennedy Court, which is located at the end of that cul-de-sac off of 45th Street, actually directly north of the GE distribution facility. The property has two businesses on it. One is a crematorium and the other is an RV and boat storage yard. The petitioner has recently had the boat and RV storage yard broken into. What we've been told is somebody hopped the fence and broke into a number of the trailers that are stored there. In response, here's a photo from Kennedy Court. There's the crematorium, there's the storage yard. In order to prevent further break-ins or future break-ins, I should say, the applicant has requested permission to install barbed wire on the top of the existing 8-foot chain link fence. It's a pretty simple variance. We don't permit barbed wire, and that's what we would like to install. So I provided some information in the report about the location and some photos. Actually, these were provided by the petitioner, and they're, let me see if I can put them the correct way. This is looking down Kennedy Court towards the facility. There's the crematorium. There's the RV and boat storage yard. And this is another aerial view, so you can kind of see that the subject property is pretty, tucked back there and kind of hidden. There's a railroad track to the north and to the west. And he's also provided the police report as verification of the break-in. I have nothing further.
Does anyone have any thoughts or comments regarding this petition?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Peterson.
do we have a representative from the petitioner here tonight?
Tom, I don't see one on my screen. I don't know if anyone is in there in the room.
Yeah, we do. I believe Kevin Kish is here to speak to the application.
What can I answer for you folks?
Mr. Kish, could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Kevin Kish, you want the address of the business or my home address here in Munster?
You can give both. You can give your address to the business.
My home address is 10331 Marlou Drive here in Munster, and the business is located at 9300 Kennedy Court.
Thank you, Mr. Kish. You could speak on your feelings on this petition and why you think you need this variance.
Well,
Catherine, can I address the
responded
question?
to the initial call. The officer that responded said, I didn't even know this was back here. We've been back there 16 years and we haven't had any problems. I installed some new lights to make it a little more visible for the people that actually use the lot, and I'm concerned that that might have drawn more attention to the people that broke in. I'm not really visible from anywhere. And I really think if by installing the barbed wire, it'll give my renters a little more sense of security back there because they are concerned about it. I don't know what else to tell you at this point in time. I don't see how it's really going to affect anybody else. I have seen other businesses in the area that do have barbed wire. And just looking for a little help here. So,
Well, Mr. Kish, I'll turn it over to Mr. Peterson because I think he had a question.
sure.
Mr. Peterson?
Mr. Kish, apart from what you're seeking here, what alternatives have you investigated that would not require a variance, but would also achieve the security benefits that you're seeking to achieve with the barbed wire?
We've just installed cameras, infrared cameras. We had Videotech and Highland install those, which is fine to see out there, but whether it's going to prevent anybody from actually hopping the fence again, I'm not so certain. I would think putting barbed wire on top of a chain link fence is much more of a deterrent than somebody having a camera, especially with everybody running around with masks on these days. So, like I said, I put in new lights so it's brighter back there. The police department now is aware that I am back there. But again, I'm pretty remote back there. There is isn't there a footpath that comes back behind there off of Fisher Street? Runs around along the old Monon tracks. So, I mean, there are people that walk back there, so I really don't know what else to do.
I've got some follow-up, please.
Sure.
Mr. Kish, have you considered installing motion detected sensors and an alarm system?
No.
Okay.
The cameras are on motion sensors, and we get an alert when the cameras are triggered, but we don't have any alarms.
Well, Mr. Kish, I want to express my thoughts on this. I am concerned about the installation of barbed wire, and there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, there's potential liability here. If you have barbed wire and somebody gets tangled in the barbed wire, you could end up suffering liability. And this is something I would suggest you discuss with your insurance agent. They may have a thought on whether this is an appropriate way to address these concerns. From a public policy perspective, it's my understanding the reason that Munster prohibits barbed wire is because it gives a very industrial and negative connotation to the state businesses in our community. And I'm not certain that that's something that's an image that we want projected out in the community. Under the circumstances, your desire for protection for your property and the occupants of your property is justifiable and understandable. But I think there's other ways for you to achieve that would avoid the very negative inferences and ramifications of installing barbed wire. And I would encourage you to consider those alternatives rather than the petition that you presented before the board.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Does anyone else have any other comments, Ms. Mayor?
Yes, I just had a couple questions, and I haven't reviewed the police report. But Mr. Kish, so some people climbed the fence, and what did they do? I mean, were they able to open the gates and take a boat out, or what happened?
No, they broke into 6 different RVs by smashing the windows and stealing personal property out of the RVs.
Okay, so they were able to get small items and get back over the fence again.
Correct.
Okay, all right. That's what I was curious about. So they didn't, cut the fence open or, anything like that. It was just over back. Okay. So, I mean, I work in construction, and on construction sites more and more, we're using these cameras that are like real time, where you see it, it's broadcast over the internet, and you can see, it's a live stream. So, but that wasn't something that yours is just basically activated by motion.
I've already installed those since then.
Okay.
Anything else, Ms. Mayor?
Nope, that was all I had.
Anyone else have any questions or comments before I look for a motion to set this for a public hearing?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. BZA.
make a motion to set for public hearing, BZA docket 20-013.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Mr.
I'll second
Chairman.
that, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I'll second whatever.
Well, Mr. Peterson seconds. Tom, will you please call roll?
Sharon Mayer,
Yes.
Stuart Friedman,
Yes.
Daniel Buxa,
Yes.
Jonathan Peterson,
Yes.
Roland Raffin.
Yes. Mr. Kish, please work with the Town of Munster staff in regards to meeting all the requirements for the public hearing next month.
Will do. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. We have no public hearings this month. We'll move on to findings of facts. BZA 20-008, findings of facts from 9445 Kellyman Avenue, McComas, BZA. Has everyone had a chance to review that? If so, what is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the BZA findings of fact for 20-008 as presented.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I second that, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second. Tom, will you please call roll?
Sharon Mayer,
Yes.
Stuart Friedman,
Yes.
Daniel Buxa,
Yes.
Jonathan Peterson,
Yes.
and Chairman Raffin.
Yes. Next item is additional items for discussion. We have BZA 20-014 regarding the rezoning of South Ridge Road Addition BZA resolution. Tom, I'll turn this over to you for a little bit of background on this.
Sure. So a few months ago, there was a request before the Board of Zoning Appeals to grant a use variance to property located here on Jackson Avenue. And the property had been used as a convent.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
By the Catholic Church, and it was purchased by an individual who wanted to rehab it and use it as a single-family home. In the discussion of that petition, it was noted that although there are a number of single-family homes in that area, which is shown on the screen in this blue cloud. Most of the land uses in this area is single-family home, but historically it has been zoned to prohibit single-family uses. So it's currently zoned CV4A, which is a mixed-use district, which does not permit single-family homes. And prior to that, rezoning in December of 2019, it was zoned C1, which was a commercial district, which also did not permit single-family homes. So the existing homes that are in that area, and really this isn't a zoning map here, but this shows the extent of that commercial zoning. It follows South Street. Everything south of South Street is zoned single-family. Everything north is zoned at CD4A. So while there are a number of these uses, they're considered legal non-conforming. So they can continue for as long as somebody wants to use them. However, if they become vacant for a period of a year, or if they're destroyed, there's a handful of other things, they will lose their status as being legal non-conforming, and they will just become illegal, in which case they would have to revert to a mixed use or commercial use scenario. So at the time of that discussion, it was noted that rather than grant a use variance, the staff had recommended rezoning it if that's something that the board felt was a legitimate use in that area and an appropriate use. And so in response to that, BZA member Dan Buxa had asked that the staff draft a petition indicating or sending a communication to the Planning Commission to ask them to study the area and review whether or not the single-family use should be a permitted use in that district. So we've prepared this petition, this resolution that's before you tonight. I can read it if you'd like, but generally it has a handful of whereas clauses that state what I just stated, and then the resolution is to request that the Munster Planning Commission review the current zoning restrictions within the Southbridge addition and consider rezoning a portion of it to permit single-family residential uses.
So Tom, I have a question. So basically this would be a CD4 and that allows single-family use as well, correct?
Well, this resolution.
The only reason, sorry, go ahead.
I would say this resolution doesn't specify what would be an appropriate zoning district. It merely requests that the Planning Commission review it, because the Board of Zoning Appeals doesn't really participate in the rezoning process in any way, other than to communicate issues that arise, which they learn of through the variance process. So the Board of Zoning Appeals hears variances, and so they hear ways that the zoning ordinance is not working or maybe could be changed. So this resolution is just to say, this particular use appears to be prevalent in this area. We may really want to give additional thought to whether or not it's a legitimate and appropriate use. And we're handing it to the Planning Commission to study the situation. The Planning Commission would review that and make a determination how to rezone it or if to rezone it. And then that recommendation would go ultimately to the town council. So,
well, Tom, I'll give a little background being on the Planning Commission, and Stuart can chime in as well. We sat through this for how long with Planapalooza, the consultants from Tennessee, town feedback, and making recommendations at the Plan Commission that we forwarded on to the town council, which rezoned this whole area based on not only the consultants' input, but it's pretty safe to say the town of Munster residents that came out spoke on behalf of having this district changed due to the proximity to the new train and rail station. Now, we had the feeling that having a legal non-conforming use, we kept all the residents in place there, but there's an overlay in the future in case a developer or someone wants to come in and redistrict this area and redevelop this area, that we had a plan and an option out there so someone could see what the town of Munster is trying to do to redevelop itself. Now, is there a way, obviously, to have, and there probably could be a way to have multiple zonings in one district, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way to modify it would be to add what's called a special consideration. And what that would do is we could define it any way we wanted. It would make this area different from all other CD4A districts in the sense that it would permit a single family home as well as, you know, everything else. So that would be probably the easiest way to just make that one change without affecting a whole, you know, without having some kind of cascading effect where we're changing or creating a new zoning district or anything.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Buxa.
just a couple quick points. You know, my initial thought was to be supportive of staff's recommendation to investigate this. That's kind of why I brought it up. I also did want to point out, I've had a couple conversations this weekend with several town leaders, and they suggest that this might be premature given the ongoing development of streetscape along Ridge Road. So I just wanted to put that out there, and you know, if this body does not support it, I would be fully going to withdraw this idea. So
I'm sorry, I didn't catch Mr. Bux's last words.
if this board does not support this, then I would be willing to withdraw it, not to have to go any further.
Well, my input is that, I mean, I think that I don't have a problem with what Tom is suggesting to resolve the situation, but I think it may be premature. Maybe we should just put this on the back burner until we see exactly what's going to be happening along Ridge Road over there. Just a suggestion.
And like I said, I don't have a problem supporting keeping it as long as both districts are represented, whether it's CD4 and single-family homes being able to be overlaid in that district. Because I don't think we want to take away a CD4 district that's been rezoned and all the planning that went into it with members of the town council, plan commission, that's been a year trying to come up with future zoning areas and mapping.
Right. In my role also as liaison to the planning commission, I agree with Roland. I don't have a problem with adding the ability of single family homes, but we certainly do not want to take away the previous zoning designation.
So, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr.
I
Buxa.
have a procedural question to Mr. Vanderwood. Would it be best to postpone definitely here, or would it be best to send to the plan commission and let the plan commission determine the timing, the propriety of the matter?
Well, my recommendation would be I'm glad that you're having this discussion, because what I don't want to see happen, at least from a staff level, is, we work very hard, as Roland said, on coming up with a good plan and a zoning category. And we don't want to see the Board of Zoning Appeals essentially disagree with that and then grant variances, on a regular basis. What we'd rather see is, okay, if that's going to be the case, that the feeling is that this is a use that should continue and the board is willing to grant a variance to permit that to happen, we'd rather see it integrated into the zoning district in a way that prevents the need for variances. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So I guess I would say that I don't have my personal opinion is that the CD4A district is the district that it should be. And that's, shown in the fact that we made that recommendation a little less than a year ago to have that zoning category put into place. But as I said, if the Board of Zoning Appeals disagrees, then this would be the way that you could express that disagreement to the Planning Commission ask them to reconsider, they may agree with you and they may not, I don't know. But rather than grant variances because you disagree with the zoning, it's better to just change the zoning, if that makes sense. So if the consensus tonight is that, well, we generally agree with the zoning, we think it should stay the same, and we'd like to see the phasing out of single family uses in this area, then I would say do not adopt the resolution. If the consensus is that we want to see single family continue, we want to see possibly new single family homes in this area, then I would say that you should adopt the resolution, because then you're indicating to the plan commission that you'd like to see a change. And you would be expressing your willingness to, if a developer came in here next month and said, hey, can I build a single family home on this lot? You know, ostensibly wouldn't be granting that variance to permit it to do so.
Tom, I'm going to give my opinion on this since I worked on it for the year. We looked at the Carpet Land site that we turned into the Five Guys and Panera site, and we knew that site was way too shallow of a site. We've had parking problems, and it just doesn't sit well. Without having the homes behind it to redevelop it, you just didn't have the right lot for all those businesses there. We worked hard to keep this a CD4, and I think it should stay a CD4, because if the train station comes and you get a lot of mixed-use developments in that area, you're going to need the depth in that area to be able to incorporate the density that that train station is projected to fulfill in the town of Munster.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think if people who live there have an understanding that they are not living in a single family neighborhood for the long term, you know, they'll potentially be less, there'll be less opposition to seeing that transformation of the neighborhood. If people are expecting that it's going to happen, then I think it makes it a little more palatable for the people who are living there.
Well, what's the pleasure of the board? In my opinion, I would vote to withdraw this. And I don't want to make a motion, but in my opinion, I would withdraw this this resolution.
Mr. Chairman, I would also want to, after I've reviewed this and considered what everybody had to say, I would also recommend that the resolution be withdrawn.
Tom, are you looking for a vote or a consensus?
I'm going to defer to Attorney Woodland on the proper procedure for this, or Dan.
Yeah, I would defer to Mr. Buxton prepared and brought before the board.
I'm sorry, David he's going to have to use a microphone. I can't hear
I'm
him.
sorry, Stuart. What I said, I think, was that because Dan brought this resolution before the board, I think it would be his obligation to either ask that it be submitted to the planning commission by way of a motion, or simply to move to withdraw.
Well, since there does not appear to be any broad support for it, I would think that if no motion was made, it would die for lack of motion.
I'm sorry, it's very difficult. Did Mr. Buxer say he's going to withdraw his motion?
I think
No motion at all.
what Mr. Buck said is that if nobody moves to approve, it will simply die for lack of a motion.
Okay.
If the consensus is here that nobody wants to move to approve, then, or move to adopt, then it's simply, we just move on.
All right, is there a motion? Going once? Going twice? Last chance. Okay, we'll move on then.
Mr. Chairman, before you do move on.
Yes, Mr. Buxa.
I would like to commend Mr. Vanderwood for his work on the concept.
Thank you, Tom. It was a lot of information. It was nice to review that to make sure we're trying to head in the right direction in the town of Munster regarding the future development that we see in front of us. The next item of discussion is changing the regular meeting time. Tom, since that's just it, what's your opinion, or should we move it up to 6:30 to give us an hour before the plan commission?
Well, the background on this is that the members of the plan commission have been having some late night meetings. And they've been here till 10 o'clock on a few occasions. And they indicated that they'd like to see an earlier start time for their meetings. And in order to make that happen, they would need to see, the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting would have to start earlier and end earlier. So this is just a discussion. There was sort of a lot of back and forth about how to do this, but essentially it's up to the BZA to make a decision for themselves, because state statute provides for them to set their own, you to set your own meeting times and dates.
Well, we rarely get out of here in a half an hour.
Right, so typically if you start at 7, we advertise the planning commission meeting at the beginning at 7:30, and that rarely happens. So the suggestion was made by the planning commission to start the meeting at 6:30. Now, I
have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, Sharon.
Why do the meetings have to be on the same day?
They do not have to be on the same day, and since I'm the newest person here, I can't probably give you the history. You could probably give a better history than I could, but my understanding is that because there's a significant overlap between the planning commission, the membership of the planning commission and the membership of the BZA, that it was found to be convenient for certain members, to have one night of meetings.
And Tom, and I would add, yes, I was here when we had discussions years and years ago, and that was basically the issue. I have no problem with starting the meeting at 6:30. If we would start it at 6, that would be a problem for me. Obviously, I'm hoping the pandemic will be over soon, and I'll be out traveling and be in Chicago for business and coming back. So 6 would be a problem, but we can try 6:30 and see how it works out. My other question is there a way that we can legitimately limit or prioritize the agenda so that if 4 petitioners want to file something with the BZA, that they don't all get to be heard on the same night? Because that's part of the problem with what's going on. We have quite a busy agenda from time to time.
Stuart, yes, we could establish policies and procedures that would limit the number of agenda items. We could also establish procedures that would limit the amount of time each agenda item should receive.
But, so we might want to think about that. But at a starting point, we could try 6:30 and see how it is. But I want to know whether that creates a burden for those members of the BZA who work in Chicago and travel.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Buxa.
Yeah, to answer Mr. Freeman's question, and I did reply to Mr. Vanderwood's email on this, it would be a burden for me, not so much traveling to Chicago, but I am a member of Munster BZA Post 16, and they meet at 6, and they generally go to 6:30, 6:45. Now, if it's here in the building, that's fine. Whenever the pandemic is over, but it would require me to leave early from that meeting if we moved it to 6:30.
Anyone else have any other opinions? I can make any time, so I'm flexible. So whether it's 6:30, 7.
I'll just point out one other thing to Sharon's question about why they're on the same night. The other benefit that it gives is for a petitioner who may have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a variance or a conditional use, and also go to the Plan Commission for subdivision or development plan approval. It allows them to, knock out both meetings in a single night.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because I can remember over the years, many, many times, the petitioner has to appear in before both the BZA and the Planning Commission. So it would be a burden. You're
Hey,
right.
Tom, can't we look at doing, I mean, it could be any time we want to pick. Can't we do the BZA at 6:45 and move the Plan Commission back to 7:45 to give it an hour? As a Plan Commission member, I'm sitting there anyways until this meeting's done. So,
So it certainly be more helpful to me.
And the planning commission can make its own rules, so, bring it up next time. You get planning commission aware of what you want to do, they'll probably cooperate with it. So.
at least that would give us an hour to try to get through its agenda in a timely manner and try to keep it to that hour so we don't hold the Plan Commission meeting up.
So I didn't hear what Mr. Bucks has said, because I'm concerned about his situation.
6:45 would be okay with me.
Would be okay? Well,
Yes.
that would be a good King Solomon approach to take to resolve this issue.
And Tom, I'd be fine as a Plan Commission member. We could bring it up next month regarding moving back 15 minutes because I know Mr. Baker doesn't like to sit there in a chair any longer than he has to come to his meeting.
Yeah, he's been pretty angry lately. I'm afraid of him. We better do.
So I think, would it make sense for there to be a vote to change the time to 6:45?
Do we have a motion to change the time to 6:45?
Make a motion that the BZA reestablish its regular meeting time at 6:45 PM on the second Tuesday of the month.
We have Mr. Buxton. Do we have a second?
I will second that, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Tom, motion passes. Any other additional items for discussion, Tom?
Nothing
Nope.
from me, no.
Okay. The
Mr.
next
Chairman.
regular business meeting is November 10th, 2020, 7 p.m.
No, 6:45?
Oh, 6:45. That's right. I'm looking at my sheet here. 6:40. We have enough time to advertise that, Tom? Obviously, if it passed tonight, we're good for 6:45 next month.
Yes, I believe 30 days is ample time
Okay.
to change the meeting time.
And we will meet November 10th, 2020 at 6:45. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you, everyone, and don't forget to get out there and vote.
Right. Everybody
Aye.
vote. Everybody, please stay safe.
Yep.
Thank you.
See you next month, all right?
Mhm.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.